The alien city lay under a sky painted in shades of violet and gold, its towering spires reaching toward swirling clouds that glowed faintly with energy. But the streets below were empty. She moved silently, footsteps careful on the smooth metal walkways, eyes scanning shadows that seemed to shift with a life of their own. Everywhere she went, whispers followed, accusing eyes and judgmental stares from faces she had once trusted. Her people had turned against her. For reasons she could no longer remember clearly, she had been shunned, cast out, left to wander alone in a society that now treated her like a ghost. Every building, every corridor, seemed like a reminder of what she had lost. The family, the acceptance, the sense of belonging she had once taken for granted. She paused at the edge of the central plaza, where a massive crystal obelisk pulsed with faint light. The energy it emitted was familiar, yet alien. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched it, sensing a resonance deep within her body. This crystal had always been a source of guidance and connection for her people, yet now it felt like a test she could not pass. As she focused, a strange signal pierced through the air, a vibration that hummed through the spires, through the streets, and into her very core. She staggered back, eyes widening. This was not her people's usual frequency. It was different, deliberate, and unmistakably foreign. Far above, in the open sky, a sleek ship descended, its hull gleaming with a metallic blue sheen, cutting through the violet clouds as though it belonged to another universe entirely. She watched, frozen, a mixture of fear and curiosity tightening her chest. She had heard tales of humans, mythic beings whose technology and courage were spoken of in hushed tones, but never had she expected to see one arrive in her city, in her life, when all seemed lost. The ship landed silently, engines fading into a low hum, and from its doorway emerged a figure. Human, yes, but somehow different. He moved with confidence, calm and measured, his eyes scanning the empty streets, then finding hers with an intensity that made her heart race. She wanted to hide, to retreat into the shadows where judgment could not reach her. But something in him, something in the way he stood, unafraid, unassuming, yet undeniably present, made her stay. His presence carried no malice, no intention to dominate or harm. Instead, there was curiosity, and more importantly, an unspoken understanding, as if he had somehow come to know her without words. She felt a flicker of hope, fragile yet real, stirring in her chest, a sensation she had not felt in years. The human raised his hand slightly, a gesture of peace, and spoke in a language she recognized only partially. Yet even without understanding, she felt the meaning. "I am here to help," his tone conveyed. It was simple, direct, and honest, unlike the whispers and accusations that had followed her for so long. She could not respond immediately. Her tongue felt heavy, her mind spinning with disbelief. Could she trust him? Could she risk revealing herself to someone who did not belong to her world, to her people, to her reality? The signal that had drawn him here pulsed again, brighter this time, almost insistently. She realized then that this was not just chance. He had been guided, called by something that knew her plight, knew the danger she faced even if she did not fully understand it herself. The crystal obelisk pulsed in harmony with the signal, casting faint shadows that danced across her face, illuminating fear, curiosity, and an inkling of determination. She took a cautious step forward, then another. The human mirrored her motion, careful not to startle her, his movements deliberate and respectful. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the city, faint but undeniable. She froze again, sensing the presence of others, watchers in the shadows, eyes on them, evaluating, judging, and perhaps waiting to intervene. Her pulse quickened. She had long known that being shunned came with consequences, that even in solitude, the danger never truly left. And now, with a human here, the stakes had changed. He could be the key to something impossible, or he could be another reason for her destruction. "I will not leave you alone," the human said quietly, a statement that was more a promise than a question. She felt the words resonate, reaching into the deepest, most guarded parts of her being. It was a simple promise, yet it carried a weight that made her chest ache with both fear and hope. For the first time in years, she considered the possibility that she might not be entirely powerless, that someone foreign and unexpected, might stand beside her, offering not judgment, but choice, not condemnation, but action. The signal pulsed again, and she understood. It was a beginning, not an end. The human was here for a reason. Whatever path lay ahead, whatever danger or discovery awaited, this moment marked the start of something that could change everything. Her shunned life, her fractured spirit, had led to this, the arrival of a being who dared to cross worlds, to pierce through the isolation, and to offer the promise of change. And as she took a hesitant step toward him, toward hope, she felt the first spark of something long lost. The courage to act, the courage to believe, and the courage to face whatever the universe had planned next. The air seemed to hum with possibility, the shadows shifted in anticipation, and for the first time, she did not feel alone. The human had arrived, and everything, even the cruelty of the past, the weight of rejection, the isolation, was about to be challenged. The signal had come, and with it, a chance for a future she had never imagined. Her shunned life was ending. A new chapter, uncertain and dangerous, was beginning. The human stepped forward, his boots clicking softly against the smooth metal walkways. She kept her distance, every instinct warning her to flee, yet something in his calm demeanor rooted her in place. His eyes were sharp, observing, yet not threatening. He carried no weapons openly, no signs of aggression, only the quiet determination of someone who had crossed galaxies to find her. The pulse of the strange signal still vibrated in the air, linking him to her, as if invisible threads tied their fates together. She could feel it, a faint warmth in her chest, a pull toward him despite years of isolation and distrust. "You're alone," he said finally, his voice carrying a softness that made her tense muscles relax just slightly. He didn't speak in accusation, didn't demand answers. Instead, he observed, waiting, allowing her space to breathe. She searched his face, trying to read his intentions, but found nothing hostile. Only patience, only curiosity. For so long, she had been shunned, judged, and left to navigate the cruel whispers of her people. And now, standing before someone entirely foreign, she felt a strange mix of fear and cautious hope. Could she allow herself to trust? The alien city remained eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity absent. Shadows shifted along the towering spires, observers from her own people hiding, watching, judging. The human's presence disrupted the balance of this world, and she knew it. If they discovered him, if they discovered her willingness to engage with him, the consequences could be severe. Yet, despite the danger, she felt the smallest spark of courage, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, things could change. He moved slowly, deliberately, keeping his hands visible, showing no sign of hostility. "I'm here to help," he repeated, this time in her own tongue, the words cautious yet determined. She flinched slightly, surprised that he had learned even this much, and yet she did not retreat. Instead, she tilted her head, watching him carefully, weighing the sincerity in his tone against the history of betrayal and rejection she had endured. Could someone from beyond her world truly understand her plight? The signal pulsed again, and the light from the crystal obelisk flickered in rhythm with it. The human glanced at it briefly, his eyes narrowing in concentration. It was as if he could sense the power flowing through the air, through her, and through the city itself. She realized then that this was more than coincidence. He had been guided here for a reason. The thought both excited and terrified her. A stranger, a human, could be the key to survival, to understanding, to reclaiming the strength she had lost under the weight of scorn and isolation. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped closer, the faint glow of the obelisk reflecting in her eyes. The human mirrored her movement, giving her room, respecting her pace. She could feel the hum of energy between them, a connection forming not through words, but through presence. Every instinct screamed to remain hidden, yet every whisper of hope urged her forward. She took another step, then another, until she was within a short distance, the air thick with tension, anticipation, and the unknown possibilities that lay ahead. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said softly, eyes locked on hers. She hesitated, every memory of shunning, every scar of rejection, rising in her mind. Could she allow herself to believe in someone outside her world, someone who might truly care? The signal pulsed again, insistently, as if urging her to make a choice. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. Perhaps this was the moment to step into something new, to risk trust, to embrace the possibility of change. Suddenly, movement flickered in the shadows. Figures from her own society watched, silent and calculating. Their presence reminded her that this decision was not without danger. If they discovered her interaction with the human, consequences would follow. Yet the human did not flinch. He stood firm, steady, ready to face whatever threat emerged. The contrast between his courage and the shadows surrounding them gave her a strange sense of reassurance. She was not alone in this encounter. She took a final step forward, closing the distance just enough to acknowledge his presence fully. The human extended his hand, not as a command, not as an expectation, but as a gesture of trust, an invitation to step beyond fear. She looked at it, her heart hammering, her mind racing through years of solitude and rejection. And then, with cautious resolve, she placed her hand in his. The warmth of contact sent a pulse through her chest, the energy of the signal merging with the human's determination, creating a bond that neither fully understood yet deeply felt. As they stood together, the shadows of her society watching from a distance, she realized that nothing would ever be the same. A human had arrived, defying distance, expectation, and fear. And with him, the possibility of change, trust, and a future that had seemed impossible for so long. The signal had brought him, and with it, the first step towards something extraordinary, something that might heal the isolation of years and challenge the very world that had once shunned her. The small chamber aboard the human ship hummed with quiet energy as she stepped inside, still wary but unable to pull away. The lights were soft, not harsh like the city's crystalline glow, and the air carried a subtle warmth that made her tense shoulders relax slightly. She could feel it immediately. This place was different. Safe. Somehow, despite the strangeness of the human world and the distance from her own people, there was no judgment here. Only observation and patience. The human watched her closely, but not with suspicion or fear. Rather with interest and care, as if every movement she made mattered, as if he were trying to understand, not command. "I need to know everything," he said quietly, tone calm but firm. "Not just what I see, but what you feel, what you fear, what you've been hiding. Only then can I help you." She hesitated, the old instincts of caution flaring. Her life had been shaped by secrecy, revealing too much meant vulnerability, and vulnerability had always been met with rejection or scorn. But in his presence, the fear was tempered by a strange trust, a sense that he would not betray her. Slowly, she began to speak, each word a small surrender, a thread pulled from the web of isolation that had trapped her for years. She told him of the shunning, of the moments when whispers filled the halls of her city and eyes turned away in disdain. She spoke of the powers she had always possessed, abilities that her people had feared, abilities that had made her different, dangerous, and therefore expendable in their eyes. She described nights spent wandering alone, nights filled with the echo of voices that were not there, memories twisted by pain and loneliness. Every word was heavy with emotion, yet with each revelation, she felt the weight lighten just slightly. The human listened without interruption, absorbing every detail, every nuance. And then, she revealed the secret she had guarded most fiercely, the energy within her that could alter matter, influence minds, and sense threats before they arrived. She had never used it recklessly, had hidden it even from those she had once called friends, because showing it meant exposing herself to danger. Her people had feared it, and now, here in this quiet human chamber, she felt a trembling mixture of shame and relief as she allowed it to exist openly, without fear of condemnation. The human's eyes widened slightly, not with fear, but with understanding. "You're not a threat," he said softly. "You're extraordinary. And what you feel, what you've hidden, is not a curse. It's power. Power that could change everything if guided right." The words were simple, yet they carried a weight she had not expected. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her family, not her leaders, not anyone. And in that moment, a flicker of hope ignited, fragile but undeniable. Perhaps she was not destined for exile and rejection. Perhaps there was a place where she could belong, where her abilities would be valued, not feared. Suddenly, the ship trembled slightly. The sensors beeped softly, indicating movement outside. Watchers, scouts from her city, observing, calculating, waiting for a chance to intervene. She froze, tension coiling in her chest. For years, she had assumed safety only in solitude. Now, with a human by her side, the danger felt sharper, more immediate, yet strangely manageable. He stepped closer, placing a hand near hers without touching, a gesture of solidarity. "They'll come," he said. "But you don't face them alone." The energy within her pulsed faintly, responding to the human's presence as if recognizing an ally. It shimmered along her fingertips, small sparks illuminating the room in soft, dancing patterns. She felt its warmth and strength, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that her abilities were a gift, not a curse. That perhaps, with guidance and trust, she could harness them fully. And the human, steady, courageous, unwavering, was willing to help her do it. Questions she had buried deep came to the surface. Could she trust someone from a world so different from her own? Could she allow herself to depend on a human when betrayal had shaped her entire life? She glanced at him, searching for signs of deceit, but found none. Only patience, only resolve, only a determination to understand and protect. Her walls, built over years of fear and rejection, began to tremble, cracks forming in the armor she had carried so long. The chamber hummed with anticipation, the energy between them palpable. Secrets had been revealed, barriers had begun to fall, and for the first time in years, she felt the faintest stirring of connection, of hope, of purpose beyond mere survival. Outside, the shadows of her society lingered, silent and watchful, yet inside, a bond was forming that neither threat nor prejudice could break. And as she took a cautious step closer to the human, she realized something she had long thought impossible. Perhaps she was not meant to face the universe alone. Perhaps she had finally found someone who could change everything. The quiet moment aboard the human ship shattered as alarms blared, red lights flashing across the walls. Sensors picked up multiple approaching vessels, sleek and angular, unmistakably belonging to her people. They had detected her interaction with the human and now moved swiftly to intervene. Her heart raced, the familiar surge of fear threatening to paralyze her. For years, she had faced judgment, exile, and scorn alone, but now, with this human beside her, the stakes were higher, yet hope flickered at the edge of panic. The human moved with calm precision, his hands guiding the ship's controls with practiced ease. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice firm yet reassuring. "We can handle this together." She hesitated, unsure if she could trust him in a confrontation that could turn deadly, yet the certainty in his tone, the steadiness in his gaze, stirred a courage she had long thought buried. Slowly, she nodded, feeling the energy within her pulse in response to his resolve. It was as if her abilities recognized his strength and aligned with it, ready to assist in ways she had only begun to understand. Outside, the first of the alien ships fired warning shots, energy beams streaking toward them with lethal precision. The human navigated skillfully, weaving through the volleys, avoiding destruction with agility and strategy that amazed her. She realized then that he was not reckless, every movement was calculated, every risk measured. And when he glanced at her briefly, she saw a silent question: "Are you ready to act?" Without hesitation, she channeled her energy outward, forming a protective barrier around the vessel that shimmered like liquid light. The blasts from the enemy ships hit the shield and dissipated harmlessly, and a thrill surged through her chest. She was no longer powerless. She could fight, she could protect, she could change the outcome. The battle intensified. More ships arrived, faster and more aggressive, their intent clear: capture or eliminate. She could feel the strain in her body, the pulse of her energy straining to maintain the protective field. But the human remained calm, issuing orders and making maneuvers with a precision that inspired trust. He encouraged her, not with words, but with presence, moving as if they were two parts of a single being. Slowly, fear gave way to focus, panic to purpose. She realized she was not just defending herself, she was standing beside someone who believed in her, who had chosen to fight for her, despite knowing little about her world or its dangers. Suddenly, a massive energy surge rocked the ship as one of the enemy vessels breached their initial defenses. She felt a sharp jolt, and panic flared for a moment. The human's voice cut through it like steel. "Focus. Remember your power. Control it. She closed her eyes, inhaled, and let the energy flow, guiding it with newfound clarity. Her barrier strengthened, the ship stabilized, and the enemy's assault faltered. For the first time, she felt mastery, a taste of the potential she had long feared to embrace. The confrontation was not just physical. Signals, readings, and subtle manipulations flowed in the air around them. The human's understanding of strategy, combined with her innate abilities, created an almost impossible advantage. Every move they made, every calculated response, pushed the enemy back. She could see it now. Their fear, their hesitation. They had underestimated her, underestimated the combination of human ingenuity and her unique gifts. The realization fueled her confidence, and a spark of determination ignited fully. Finally, the last of the pursuers retreated, unable to break through their combined defenses. The ship floated in silence once more, the hum of its engines the only sound in the void. She exhaled deeply, muscles relaxing for the first time in hours, yet adrenaline still coursed through her veins. The human turned toward her, eyes calm, expression steady, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But she knew differently. Everything had changed. "You see now," he said quietly, voice carrying both reassurance and pride. "You are stronger than you believed. And together, nothing can stop us." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate within her. The challenge had tested her, pushed her to the edge of fear and doubt, yet it had also revealed a new reality, one where she could stand, fight, and protect alongside someone who believed in her unconditionally. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent yet brilliant. Inside, she felt a shift within herself, a movement toward trust, courage, and the understanding that her life was no longer defined solely by rejection or fear. She was capable. She was formidable. And with the human beside her, she knew she could face whatever awaited, because this challenge had not broken her. It had awakened her. The aftermath of the battle left the ship floating in the quiet expanse of space, the distant stars casting faint reflections across the hull. Inside, she sat silently, her hands still tingling with the residual energy of the protective barrier she had maintained. Her chest heaved with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. For the first time in years, she felt alive, not just surviving, but empowered. The human watched her closely, not interrupting, merely observing with an intensity that made her aware of the bond forming between them. He had seen her at her most vulnerable, yet he had not flinched. He had trusted her, relied on her, and she had risen to the challenge. That realization ignited a spark she could not ignore. "Your people underestimated you," he said softly, breaking the silence. "But now you see the truth. You are not defined by their fear or their rules. You have power, and more importantly, you have the courage to use it." His words resonated deep within her, stirring memories of long-suppressed dreams and ambitions. She had spent years in the shadows, hiding her abilities, accepting exile as a punishment for being different. But now, standing on the precipice of something new, she began to imagine a life where she was not shunned, not judged, but respected, and perhaps even admired. The human guided her to the control panel, showing her how to interpret the ship's readings and energy flows. She watched, fascinated, as he manipulated unfamiliar instruments with precision and understanding. Slowly, she realized that his knowledge was not just technical, it was intuitive. He could anticipate the ship's needs, predict the movements of others, and plan several steps ahead. She felt a growing admiration for him, a recognition that his presence was more than an ally's, it was a catalyst for change. As they worked together, a faint signal appeared on the screen, another vessel, approaching, but unlike the aggressive ships before. Its design was unfamiliar, sleek, almost organic, yet the readings suggested intelligence and purpose. The human glanced at her, eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Allies," he whispered. "They are coming to guide us. Whatever lies ahead, we won't face it alone." She felt a mix of relief and apprehension. Allies meant support, yes, but also accountability and expectation. She realized that her journey was no longer solitary. She was no longer just the shunned one, the outcast. She was part of something larger, something that demanded courage, collaboration, and trust. Hours passed in tense anticipation. The approaching vessel maintained distance, its movements deliberate. She could feel her abilities reacting to it, subtle fluctuations in energy, almost like a heartbeat. The human noticed and explained how to synchronize her energy with the ship's systems, amplifying their combined strength. It was a revelation. Her powers, once feared and suppressed, could now be harnessed with purpose and guidance. She felt exhilarated, a thrill unlike any she had known, the weight of fear replaced by the weight of possibility. Her thoughts drifted to her people, to the whispers and judgment that had defined her life. Could they see her now? Could they witness the strength she had found, the courage she had embraced, the bond she had forged with someone entirely foreign? A surge of determination rose within her. She would not allow herself to be defined by their narrow-mindedness any longer. The human had shown her another path, a path where she could exist fully, without fear, without hiding, without compromise. The approaching vessel finally made contact, docking smoothly alongside their ship. Beams of soft light illuminated the hull, and a figure emerged, alien but clearly not hostile. The human turned to her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "This is the next stage," he said. "The journey continues, and you are ready." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate in every fiber of her being. The challenge had tested her limits, the battle had revealed her strength, and now the path forward demanded more than survival. It demanded action, courage, and belief in herself. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not alone, where her abilities could make a difference, and where someone human, someone who had crossed galaxies, stood beside her, unwavering and steadfast. The turning point was not just external. It was internal. She had stepped beyond fear, beyond exile, beyond the shadows of judgment, and had embraced the possibility of change. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull, she understood that her life, her purpose, and her destiny were no longer bound by the past. The universe awaited, full of danger, discovery, and the unknown. But she was ready. Together with a human at her side, she would face whatever came next. Not as the shunned one, but as someone powerful, someone courageous, and someone capable of changing everything. The city of her people appeared on the horizon, its spires glinting faintly under the alien sun, familiar yet distant. She stared at it from the deck of the human ship, a mixture of dread and anticipation twisting in her chest. Years of exile and judgment had carved deep scars into her spirit, yet now, standing beside someone who had crossed galaxies to reach her, she felt something she had not known for a long time: strength. The human adjusted the ship's controls, keeping a steady course as they approached the landing platform. "Whatever happens next," he said quietly, eyes on hers, "we face it together." Stepping onto the platform, the reactions were immediate. Members of her society froze, whispers cutting through the air like blades. Some recoiled, unsure how to confront the presence of both her and the human who had dared to defy their rules. Others watched silently, calculating, waiting to see if the shunned one would falter under scrutiny. She felt the familiar pulse of fear, but it was tempered now by determination and the bond she had forged. She was no longer the isolated figure who had wandered the streets alone. She had allies, courage, and purpose. The High Council emerged from the shadowed halls, their expressions a mixture of shock, anger, and disbelief. "Explain yourself," one demanded, voice sharp and commanding. She stood tall, her energy pulsing faintly around her in a subtle display of strength, a quiet reminder that she was no longer powerless. The human beside her did not speak for her, did not overshadow her. He remained calm, a steady presence, his gaze unwavering, allowing her to claim her own voice. "I will explain," she began, voice clear and firm, cutting through the murmurs and tension. She recounted the events, her shunning, the arrival of the human, the challenges they had faced together, and the strength she had discovered within herself. She spoke of her abilities, not as curses, but as gifts, capable of protection, understanding, and change. As she spoke, she saw doubt flicker across the faces of some council members, and even the whispers seemed to waver. Perhaps they had underestimated her, as the human had once noted. Perhaps they had feared what they did not understand. The human stepped slightly forward, not to claim credit, but to offer support. His presence alone carried weight, proof that someone from beyond their world had recognized her value, had seen her potential, and had chosen to stand by her. The council shifted uneasily, confronted not just by her words, but by the undeniable courage and competence she now radiated. The energy that had once isolated her now demanded respect. Over hours that felt like days, the council debated, observed, and tested. She remained steady, her confidence growing with each moment. The human's quiet guidance, combined with her own abilities, turned every challenge into a demonstration of capability. Slowly, the tide shifted. Members of her society who had once scorned her began to reconsider, their eyes softening, their whispers replaced by cautious acknowledgement. She realized then that change was possible, not just for herself, but for the society that had cast her aside. Finally, the council stepped back, a collective recognition settling over them. She had not only survived their scrutiny, but she had transformed it. The shunned one was no longer defined by rejection. She had reclaimed her place, not as a submissive member seeking approval, but as someone respected for courage, intelligence, and strength. The human beside her smiled faintly, a mirror of pride and relief. Together, they had rewritten the rules that had confined her, proving that judgment and fear could be overcome by trust, courage, and action. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the city, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The isolation of years was replaced by possibility. The whispers of fear and judgment had faded, replaced by acknowledgement, respect, and perhaps even admiration. She turned to the human, gratitude and something deeper reflecting in her eyes. He had changed everything, not by force, not by dominance, but by unwavering belief, by crossing boundaries that others had dared not challenge. For the first time in her life, she felt fully seen, fully capable, and fully free. The city, once a place of exile and despair, now stood as a testament to courage, resilience, and transformation. She understood that her journey was far from over, that challenges would continue to arise, but she was no longer alone. Together, they had proven that change was possible, that fear could be confronted, and that the universe, vast and uncertain as it was, held room for hope, trust, and extraordinary bonds. As she looked toward the horizon, the human at her side, she felt a quiet determination settle within her. This was not an ending, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one defined not by rejection, but by choice, courage, and the extraordinary power of standing together. The shadows of the past no longer held sway. The shunned one had returned, stronger than ever, ready to face whatever the universe would dare to bring.